If I hadn't looked at her screen at that moment, I might have continued to believe, but now I don't even believe in coincidences. The message arrived on Sunday morning. One quick glance and everything cracked. No, it didn't crumble right away, it just cracked. My name is Sergei. I'm 49. I am a design engineer. I work for a municipal energy company in Tver. We live in a standard two-room apartment on Sadovaya Street in a panel house from the 90s. The bathroom also has Soviet tiles. An old amber clock, bought by my father in 1985, is ticking in the hallway. I fixed them myself. I replaced the pendulum. My wife's name is Elena. We've been together for 17 years. We didn't get along right away, and we don't have children for medical reasons, mostly on her side. However, I never reproached, and by the age of 40, I was used to the silence of the house. Loved him. I thought she loved me too. I work from 8 to 5. Sometimes I stay on shift duty. She's the manager at the Pharmaplus pharmacy. The schedule is rolling, sometimes until 7, sometimes in the morning. We've been on different shifts a lot lately. It was so coincidental. And now, to that very message. It was Sunday, November 12th. We were going to go to the cottage in Sergei to prepare the site for winter. Elena was making coffee in the kitchen, and I was looking in the closet for my old tracksuit. My wife's phone was on the windowsill, and a notification came. I didn't want to look. I wasn't going to. I just turned around, and my eyes fell on the screen. You're amazing. I can't forget Friday. I'm counting the hours until Thursday. I was stunned. The clarity of this phrase was as clear as a blueprint on tracing paper. Not a single word required interpretation. I didn't say anything. I just went out on the balcony and pretended to be looking for work gloves. His heart was pounding, but his mind remained strangely calm. I knew that if I made a scene now, everything would end stupidly. And I needed to know everything. Who, when, and how long ago. We went to the cottage. Elena chatted about how the terrace needed to be insulated for the winter and how Irina, a neighbor, was going to sell her plot. She seemed ordinary. I nodded, and sometimes I interjected the usual aha, and all the time I was wondering who was counting the hours to Thursday. I started watching. On Monday, I took a day off for family reasons and went to the pharmacy. Across the street from her is the Vesna store. I stood at the entrance, pretending to be a man with a bag waiting for a taxi, and waited for her to get out. She came out at exactly 18:15. She was wearing a beige raincoat and a dark shoulder bag. I looked around, turned the corner. I followed not immediately, at intervals, as they taught at training camps in the 2000s. Then we went through the basics of military intelligence. Elena went to the stop on Gagarin Street, but did not get on the bus. Instead, I turned into the Iris Cafe, which is on the ground floor of an apartment building. She entered without looking back. I waited 7 minutes and followed. I stood at the counter and pretended to be waiting for an order. The mirror on the wall reflected her table. A man in his 40s, wearing a blue shirt, was sitting opposite. He was talking, gesturing with a smile. She was laughing. Her laugh is not that homely, restrained, but cheerful, open. I saw her like this about 15 years ago when she was telling jokes to my colleague at a corporate party. I went out without picking up the order. We had dinner in silence that night. I pretended to be tired, but it was as if nothing had happened. But I didn't sleep that night. I looked at the ceiling and decided that I needed to act coldly. No tantrums, no scenes. First of all, the password for her phone. I knew she was using the same PIN. The date of our wedding, 1408. On Tuesday morning, when Elena went to take a shower, I quickly unlocked her smartphone. WhatsApp correspondence with Andrey the client. Jokes, compliments, voicemails. The last one is at 23:45. I'm so happy that I met you. I felt a wave rising inside me, but I forced myself to finish reading. There was no falsehood in those words. She wrote sincerely to the other one. I took screenshots, sent them to my email, and deleted the traces. The phone was returned to its place. That same evening, I signed up for a consultation with a lawyer through the legal consultant service in the app. The woman with the confident and calm voice said, "Keep watching. The evidence is important, but don't rush it. Betrayal should be fixed not by emotion, but by fact. I nodded to myself, to the screen, and started collecting materials. But even I didn't expect what it would lead to. Over the next few days, I began to notice things that didn't seem to be there before. Or maybe I just didn't want to see it. Elena began to use headphones more often, as if hiding what she was listening to. Her face sometimes lit up with an expression I hadn't seen on her in 10 years. Not delight, not joy, but something in between, as if she lived in another dimension in which I am not. I continued to play the role of an ordinary husband. I bought groceries, picked up the mixer from the repair, watched the news in the kitchen in the evening while she corresponded in the messenger. Show it meant to snap, and I needed the truth, not a scandal. At work, a colleague in the department, Victor, noticed, "You're kind of detached." I replied with the usual, "It's okay," but I understood clearly at that moment. I haven't been okay for a long time. Friday has become a key day. I made an appointment in advance with the driver of a private service, Alexander, my former colleague. For a fee, he agreed to follow Elena. He had experience. He worked in security, then went to the private sector. I didn't know what he would find, but I knew that this evening was crucial. Elena's shift ended at 1800 hours. Alexander was waiting for her at the pharmacy from 1750. I was at home, next to the phone, pretending to have a cold, watching a TV series. At 6:12 p.m., he sent a photo. Elena comes out of the pharmacy, smiling, phone in hand. It's not going to the bus stop, but to the parking lot behind the house. A car pulls up, a dark green Hyundai Tucson. There's a man driving. She sits down. The car drives away. I immediately open my laptop and punch the number through a friend at the traffic police. It is registered to Andrey Viktorovich Nekrasov, born in 1977, an entrepreneur who installs windows. My heart sank. The name matched, and the age is under 40. It all fit. Alexander was watching them. The car drove towards the region, then turned onto a country road, drove into a cottage village, and stopped at a 2-story house. The gate opened automatically. Half an hour later, a new message arrived. The house is clearly not a permanent home, but it is habitable. Curtains, lights, parking for 2 cars. They stayed inside. I closed my laptop and sat down on a stool. My eyes rested on the drawing on the oilcloth. Blue flowers, yellow birds, small coffee stains. I looked into that oilcloth as if into an abyss. What's next? That evening, Elena returned at 23:40. I pretended to be asleep on the couch. She walked past me quietly, almost inaudibly. There was the sound of running water in the bathroom, then footsteps into the bedroom. The door closed. I just lay on the couch until dawn. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I needed to think through every next step. On Saturday morning, I left for work. In fact, I went to the center to see a lawyer, whom I had signed up for that Tuesday. Her name was Olga Dmitrievna, a woman in her 40s with clear speech and confident movements. I told her everything without emotion, just the facts. She listened and said, "It's not about cheating, Sergei. It's about what you want to get. Divorce, separation, compensation." I want her to bear the consequences, legally, without dirt, but so that there is no doubt who was the traitor. Olga nodded. "So let's start with fixing it. Photos, videos, correspondence. Then we'll deal with the property." Yes, but not his money. I want her to stay with the one for whom it was all about. With his life, with his windows. The lawyer made a note. "Then you need to hold on for a while longer. We will prepare a statement. Proceed as usual." I left her feeling heavy and strangely like I wasn't waiting any longer. I know. In the evening, Elena cooked pilaf at home. The aroma of spices, onions, and meat filled the kitchen. She was cheerful, telling me how a client came with a claim for drops. I listened, nodded, ate, and looked at her and thought, how can you be like this? How can you stand by the stove, joking and knowing that you're lying to me every day? On Sunday, I went to the garage. On the shelf was a dictaphone I bought back in 2010 when I was recording lectures. I charged it, checked it, and it's working. On Monday morning, I installed it in the bedroom between the curtains. Elena was in the shower at the time. That evening, while she was taking out the trash, I checked the record. She was on the phone. Softly, tenderly, "I miss you." Yes, even in the middle of the day. "It won't work today. He's at home. But I have a morning shift tomorrow. I'm free until 6. Are you coming?" I stopped recording and realized that tomorrow was the key day. I called Alexander again. "We need to make a video of the meeting tomorrow. Close up." "Tell me, do you want to show it to her?" "No, I want to show it to the court." At that moment, I felt the invisible wall between us turn to concrete, and behind it, she was smiling, gentle, but no longer mine. I fell asleep with one thought: tomorrow we will be in the same apartment, but in different worlds. The next morning, Tuesday, I woke up at 6 o'clock. Elena, as always, is already in the bathroom. I could hear the water gurgling, the lid of the cream clicking. It smelled like her shampoo, fresh and fruity. The smell made me feel sick now, but I kept my face. Her morning preparations were a familiar ritual. The same movements, the same phrases. I asked, pouring boiling water into a mug. "No later than 7, I think. I'm doing the morning shift, then I'm meeting with suppliers." "Don't wait. Have dinner yourself." "Suppliers." It was a new version of an old lie. I nodded. "Okay, I'll be late too. We have a meeting on an object in the region." She turned and looked at me intently, quickly, and shrewdly. "Sergei, are you okay?" "Why not?" "You're just kind of detached." "No, I'm not sick. It's just autumn." She looked at it for a second more, then looked away and went into the bedroom to pack her bag. 10 minutes later, the door slammed and I was left alone. At 9:10 a.m., Alexander sent the first message. Photo: Elena leaves the pharmacy, gets into the same car. Tucson, the same driver. They drove off. I didn't call, I didn't text, I just waited. At 9:45 a.m., a new message: we arrived at the same house. We went inside. 20 minutes later, the video. Alexander worked professionally. Through the Zoom, he filmed Elena and a man kissing in the hallway. She takes off her raincoat, and he strokes her back. The camera captures everything, without words, without sound. But everything is clear. I was sitting in my car by the garage, watching this video on my phone screen, and there was a strange hum in my head. It's like tinnitus, low and muffled. It was no longer jealousy, no longer pain. It was a job. Operation. At 12:20, Elena went out alone. She came out a little disheveled, wearing glasses, with her hair down. I got in the car and drove, judging by the route, back to the pharmacy. The working day continued. At home, I opened my laptop and checked the safety of all the data: videos, screenshots, call logs. Everything is neatly in a separate folder on an external drive. I went back to the lawyer. Olga Dmitrievna watched the video, said nothing, then said, "The evidence base is strong. We can prepare a claim. How is the apartment decorated?" "At me." "A car?" "Mine. There are no children, so there is no custody. It remains to fix the constancy of the connection. We will file a petition for access to correspondence through the court." I nodded. "In the meantime, live as you have lived. You have a difficult month ahead of you, but you will come out of it with dignity." When I got home, I found Elena in the kitchen. She was cutting vegetables for a salad. The room smelled of dill and something homey. She glanced over her shoulder. "You're early." "It's okay. The meeting was postponed." "I see. Are you singing? I do not know what is going on, but you are frighteningly silent." I looked into her eyes, calmly, without anger. "Didn't you think it was just too late?" She pulled her hand away, didn't say a word, and went into the bathroom. That night, I checked the recorder again. He worked. There's a call on the record. "Hello, Bunny. Listen, I can still feel your hands. Yes, it's mandatory on Friday. He'll be on duty. I'll be back at lunch. Do you want tea or coffee?" I saved a file called proof of underscore F3. On Wednesday, Elena became more cautious. She wrote less, talked less, and smiled tightly. I felt something, but it was too late. On Thursday, I went back to on duty. I was actually waiting for Alexander's call. He didn't let me down. It all happened again. He's got it. I'm making an archive. I returned home in the evening. Elena met me at the door and suddenly said, "Sergei, we need to talk." I nodded. "I wanted to tell you that too." She sat down at the table, her hands shaking. I want to live separately. I need to think about it, to understand what is happening to us. I sat across from him, looking straight into his eyes. "Are you sure you need to think? Or have you already decided? Do you just want to leave beautifully?" Her lips twitched. She looked away. "There's nothing serious there. I just don't feel like I'm around you anymore. It's like I'm not me." "Are you with him? Are you with the one who's counting the hours to Thursday?" She shuddered. "What? Are you with him?" She turned pale and was silent for a long time. "Have you been following me?" "No. I just stopped closing my eyes." She jumped up. "This is a violation. This is distrust." "It's true. That's all." We were silent. "I'm filing for divorce, Lena. All documents are being prepared. You're left without an apartment, without a car, with him in his rented house. And if you don't agree, then I'll see you in court. With videos, with messages, with your voicemails." And at that moment, for the first time in a long time, she was not an actress. She just stood with her hands at her sides and was silent. I didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling. Everything was decided, but there was no joy inside, only silence. The silence of a winner who knows that the most difficult thing lies ahead. In the morning, I received a notification letter from Telegram. "Your account has been added to the closed Sincere Confessions group." I clicked and saw that they were discussing me. And not only them. The morning began with a void. Elena didn't cook breakfast, didn't click her heels in the kitchen. I knew that she had spent the night at his place, had not written, had not called, disappeared. There was a notification on my phone. "You have been added to the Telegram group Sincere Confessions." The group was closed, but there were more than 40 members inside. Most of them are female accounts. Elena was there too, her nickname with hearts, the same one that I had already seen in her correspondence with Andrey. Every record in this band was a revelation in the worst sense. Women talked about their tyrant husbands, shared tips on how to behave during a divorce, and how to leave an idiot with a nose. Someone posted screenshots of correspondence with lawyers, someone posted photos of new lovers. Everything was accompanied by exclamations and stickers. I flipped through it slowly, carefully. Elena has been writing there since July. The first messages are complaints. "He became cold. We're like neighbors. It's like I'm trapped." Then, advice and support. In August, she mentioned the one without a name for the first time. "I'm alive with him." Then there's a photo from the balcony of that very house. Garden view, glass of wine. Caption, "But it could have been forever." There are dozens of likes under the picture. Fire, "I'm proud of you." It wasn't just a chat. It was a secret club of those who believed in their right to cheat as a release. I saved every message, took screenshots, and archived it. It wasn't revenge, it was proof. I started to see the structure. Everything had a logic. Elena didn't snap. She went to it systematically, consciously. Every delay, every gift from colleagues, everything was part of the preparation. She was building a bridge to another life for herself, along which she was going to leave beautifully, leaving me in the dust. But I followed, not with reproaches, but with facts. And step by step, the bridge turned into a rope over a precipice for her. On the same day, I met with Olga Dmitrievna. We have filed an application for the dissolution of the marriage, and we have attached the evidence: photos, videos, audio recordings, and screenshots of the group. The lawyer took a break to draft a motion to include these materials in the case. She looked at me for a long time. "You know," she said, "usually in such stories men either scream or drink or disappear. And you're like a surgeon. Cold. To the last vessel." I didn't answer, just nodded. 2 days later, Elena returned. No call, no warning. She entered the apartment as if nothing had happened, took off her shoes, and threw off her bag. It was a normal scene, except for one thing. I knew it was an attempt to come back. Not to me, but to my position, to my apartment, to my reliability. She went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, took out the juice as before, just like before. She poured it into a glass, put it on the table, sat down opposite, and stared for a long time. His eyes were tired and tear-stained, but his lips were compressed, like a fighter who had lost a round. "But don't be afraid." I continued to drink tea without looking at her. She was silent, and I was silent. In the evening, she packed some of her things, cosmetics, a couple of dresses, underwear. All in silence. It was like there was a glass barrier between us. I didn't even hear her footsteps. The next morning, she disappeared completely without words. A week later, Alexander called me. She quit the pharmacy, and she didn't just quit, she left with a conflict. The manager said that she tried to conceal some of the goods. The supplier has confirmed. It looks like there's something pulling at the article. I thanked him. Everything will go faster now. On the same day, I received a call from the center where Elena taught volunteer wellness courses. They said that due to the loss of trust, she would no longer teach. And they added, "A complaint has been received from a participant." Someone anonymously sent excerpts from the Sincere Confessions group in which she shared intimate details. I listened in silence and realized that a snowball had rolled. I didn't push him, I just let him go. I received a notification from the court. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for December 20th. The defendant is Elena Sergeevna. He is represented by a lawyer. I smiled. Now, they don't just have a bed, they have a common lawsuit. Olga Dmitrievna added a petition to include in the consideration the fact that Elena leads a public group inciting hatred towards her partner in order to manipulate the division of property. It wasn't just beautifully designed, it was verified as an engineering calculation. We have filed a counterclaim to demand compensation for moral damage for public discrediting. It was a check. Checkmate will be later. In the evening, I opened Telegram again. The Sincere Confessions group has disappeared. Deleted. All the messages are in my archive. The fact itself is telling. Someone got scared. Or did you understand? The game has gone too far. I went out onto the balcony. Autumn rustled through the leaves. A dog was barking somewhere. I was standing, holding a cup in my hands, and for the first time I felt light. No, I wasn't happy, but I was calm. And then a new email arrived, an email notification from an unknown address. "If you want to know the truth about Elena, about Andrey, and about yourself, come tomorrow at 1900 hours exactly at the Harmony Cafe on Highway. It's important, and it's not a threat." It was not specified who it was from. The signature is simply Marina. I didn't sleep all night. Not from anxiety, but rather from internal tension, similar to the feeling when you approach a door with a noise behind it. You don't know what's there. Someone is crying or someone is waiting. But you know for sure there will be no turning back after that. The letter from Marina was bothering me. Who is she? Elena's colleague, ex-girlfriend? The name could be fake. The wording is clear, businesslike, without emotion. It was alarming. But I decided to go. I've always believed in information. Even if it's bitter, it's a weapon, and it's never superfluous when you're fighting. Harmony Cafe is a small cafe on the ground floor of a 9-story residential building. Once there was a bakery here, then a flower shop. Now it's a coffee shop. There's a counter at the entrance, followed by a barista in an apron, a light scent of vanilla and fresh pastries. I entered at 1855. There aren't many tables, and half of them are empty. A woman in her 40s is standing by the window. A scarf around his neck, a coat on the back of a chair, a neat bag. When I approached, she nodded, not smiling. "Sergei, right? My name is Marina. Sit down." She did not extend her hand, made no attempt to turn the conversation into a social tone. Straight to the point. Marina worked in a pharmaceutical company as a manager. She ran several pharmacies, including the one where Elena was the manager. At first, their relationship was a working one. Elena seemed reliable and calm to her. Then the nuances began. Strange deviations in the reports, the disappearance of trial batches, gifts from manufacturers that did not reach the buyers. Marina was in no hurry to draw conclusions, but one day she received a complaint from a competitor. They say that one of the pharmacies artificially lowers the volume and sells the difference into the shadows. She conducted her investigation and found Elena. She sold some of the shipments through friends, namely through Andrey. Andrey Nekrasov is the one with whom Elena spent her days. But it wasn't just about love. He forged invoices, supplied materials in exchange for drugs. It was a scheme. Their scheme. Marina gathered the materials and sent them upstairs. She was silenced for the sake of the network's reputation. But when Elena quit with a bang, suspecting that information was being leaked, she decided that it made no sense to remain silent any longer, and now she wanted to pass everything on to me. The folder on the flash drive contains documents, internal reports, screenshots of correspondence between Elena and Andrey, where they discussed amounts, shared calculations, and even laughed at customers. I listened without blinking. There was no anger or terror inside, just a cold confirmation. Cheating wasn't just about the body, it was about meaning. Everything that I considered marriage, home, and family life was a shell, comfortable, until I found something more profitable. Marina finished and drank the rest of her coffee. "I'm not doing this out of revenge," she said, "but such people shouldn't get away with it. You are a reasonable person. You will understand how to use it." I thanked him and went out into the darkness. It was starting to rain, fine and steady. I was walking along the highway, and there was only one thing in my head. Andrey was not just a lover, he was an accomplice, a con artist, and she was an accomplice. I spent the next week working, but at the same time, I was collecting dossiers. I checked everything Marina gave me. I checked it with what I had. The puzzle was put together without cracks. Fraud, damage, abuse of trust. Legally, the case was a criminal one. I was in no hurry to go to the police. I knew that if I burned it right away, it would just be payback. And I needed a position that was reliable and strong, so that I could not just get a divorce in court, but clear everything to zero, so as not to leave her any illusions or memories. Olga Dmitrievna was delighted. "It's not just a bonus, it's a test shot. We have filed a second application as a civil claim. Claims for compensation inflicted on me as a spouse who was involved in actions that cast a shadow on my reputation. We added photos, diagrams, and a link to Nekrasov's IP. Meanwhile, Elena had disappeared, neither in the apartment nor at the address that I left. The phone was silent. Nothing on social media. Her friends didn't respond. No one knew where she was. Until Friday. In the evening, the bell rang. Unexpected, dry. A man's voice. "Sergei Viktorovich," says investigator Petrov, "your ex-wife Elena Sergeevna was detained in the region while trying to sell drugs without a license. Fake invoices were found in her possession. During the interrogation, she named you as someone who was aware of the activity, but who did not interfere. We would like to ask you a few questions." I wasn't surprised. I was ready. He said calmly, "I'll be with you in the morning. With evidence. I can tell you a lot. A lot of things." I hung up the phone and went out onto the balcony. The rain has already turned into a flake of snow. The light of the street lamp was blurred in puddles, and it was only at that moment that I felt this story is not about cheating or divorce. It's about regaining yourself, your name, your truth. I didn't know what the court would say or how the case would turn out, but I knew for sure that I hadn't just exposed a lie. I cut off everything from myself that was no longer related to me, and only now was I really ready for the final. And suddenly, there was another call. The number was hidden. The voice is female, but not Elena and not Marina. Just one question. Are you sure, Sergei, that it was just one message? After the call with that one question, are you sure, Sergei, that it was just one message? Everything inside shrank. Not from fear, but from the feeling when you were sure you had reached the end of the game, and suddenly a new piece appeared on the board, an unfamiliar one, but clearly not a pawn. I checked the number, it was hidden. I listened to the voice again. Young, feminine, calm, without pressure. But there was something in that phrase, in that intonation, that left no doubt. She knew more. More than a friend, neighbor, or former colleague could know. I didn't call back. It would have been pointless, but the signal I received was more important than any information. The game is not over yet. In the morning, I came to the investigator. A typical office, gray walls, old furniture, stacks of folders on the windowsill. Petrov was dry but polite. He listened attentively. I handed over a flash drive with materials, gave an explanation, a chronology, and provided copies of documents from Olga Dmitrievna. He didn't hide his interest, especially when I mentioned Andrey Nekrasov's activities and the scheme Elena was involved in. When the phrase organized sale of drugs outside the pharmacy chain was mentioned, his face became serious. This may turn into an article, and not only on your line. There's an economic and criminal direction here. I may have to call you again. And more than once. I nodded. I didn't need revenge, but I needed cleanliness so that everything that was left was transparent, like glass after rain. Meanwhile, Olga Dmitrievna was preparing a lawsuit. We changed the accents. Now, it wasn't just about the divorce and the division of property. We raised the issue of intentional infliction of moral and property damage. Elena, using the status of a spouse, received benefits, economic, psychological, social, by deceiving, hiding, misleading. This required compensation, not with money, but with a court decision. Andrey Nekrasov disappeared. The phone is out of the zone, the registration address is empty. His IP was closed a week before Elena's detention. Obviously, he knew that the circle was shrinking and decided to go into the shadows. I wasn't looking for him. I wasn't following him. May the shadow become his home forever. But that text message, the very first one that started it all, continued to live in my head. And now, after receiving a call from a stranger, I couldn't help but wonder if it had all started even earlier. What if it was just the top? I picked up the archive of her old phone, took out the Sony Ericsson from the closet. We kept it in the charger drawer. Elena used to wear it as a second number. After buying a new smartphone, I just quit. An old cable, drivers, and a data extraction program. And here are the contents of the memory, messages, old correspondence, contacts. I didn't expect to find anything, but I had to check it out. I came across a strange chain in the outgoing folder. Messages from 3 years ago that were sent to a number that was not saved in contacts. Dry phrases. Everything is as agreed. He doesn't suspect anything. The documents will be ready tomorrow. And a photo. Scans of some certificates, contracts. One photo is a receipt. About the transfer of money for furniture with his signature and Nekrasov. 3 years ago. So they were already acquainted then. So a lie is not a year, not 2, but 3 and maybe more. So my whole life with her in recent years has been a theater in which I sat in the audience and applauded my own destruction. I called Olga. We have new information. I'm sending screenshots. She wasn't surprised. I almost expected it. Just take care of yourself. At this stage, don't let emotions defeat calculation. I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, went into the kitchen, turned on the kettle. The sound of boiling water, the noise outside the window, the wind in the window. Everything was painfully familiar, but this day was especially empty. In the evening, an email arrived from the same address as Marina's first message. Only the sender's name was different now. Hello, Sergei. I'm not who you thought I was. My name is Irina, and I have a story, not about Elena, about him, about Andrey Nekrasov. He was my husband once. I know how it works. And if you think he's just your wife's lover, you're wrong. He is a destroyer, systematic, methodical. You have the right to know what really happened. I'm ready to meet. Only you have to be prepared for the fact that after that, you won't look at your life the way you used to. There's a signature and a phone number at the bottom. Time, Saturday, 1800 hours exactly. Park near the theater. A bench by the fountain. I've read the letter over 10 times. My head was pounding. The questions multiplied like ripples on water. He was married. He knew how to handle it. He was pulling in. And Elena is not the first, and maybe not the last. I stood at the window and looked out into the evening. Cars were walking down the street, headlights cutting through the darkness. A dog barked somewhere. A door slammed somewhere. And suddenly I realized that the finale was near, but not the finale I was waiting for, but the other one. Deeper, tougher, truer. And he will require from me not just endurance, but a complete rejection of illusions. Because sometimes, in order to defeat evil, you need to face its source face to face. Saturday turned out to be gloomy. Snow, like forgotten rain, crumbled in the air and settled on railings, car hoods, benches. I left the house half an hour before the meeting. He walked slowly along Central Street, then turned onto Lennon Street to the theater. There's a void in my head. No expectations, just a feeling like I've reached the final milestone. Everything that was assembled, arranged, and prepared. Only a dot remains. Past. The park was almost empty. Just a couple of young mothers with strollers and some pensioner with a thermos on a bench near the pavilion. I recognized the right place right away. There's a fountain in the center and a wooden bench under the lime trees. She was already there. Irina, a woman in her 40s. Dark coat, headscarf, calm gaze. She wasn't pretty, but there was something in her face that was hard to fake. Inner weariness and truthfulness. "Sergei," she said, her voice confident and even. "Thank you for coming." I nodded and sat down next to him. We were silent for a minute. Then she started. Andrey Nekrasov, her ex-husband. They met in Kislovodsk, where he was installing air conditioners in sanatoriums. Smart, charismatic, sociable, could listen, could convince. They lived together for almost 6 years. Everything was calm until he got involved in the scheme. He began selling fake certificates for building materials through her, arranging for them to be written off from warehouses. She didn't know at first, but when she realized, it was too late. He pressed her, threatened her, said she couldn't prove anything, that everyone was like that. She left with difficulty, broken, lost her job, her health, and a part of herself. Then I saw Elena in the sincere confessions chat. From his voice, from his words, I immediately understood who was behind this. The same style, the same system. He's not a lover, Sergei. He's a parasite. He's looking for women who are unhappy or bored. He convinces them that they have the right, and then connects it to the circuit. Someone is lying to her husband, someone to her employer, someone to the state. And when everything collapses, he disappears. Always. I listened, and everything was lining up in my head, without spaces. Your Elena, she continued, may have been in love, but not just like that. He hooked her for what hurt, for your calmness, for your restraint, for the fact that you are stronger than she is. And she decided to win, and he gave her this illusion. Irina handed over the flash drive. There were documents, certificates, names, people. 3 women, 2 of them convicted of fraud. 1 man committed suicide, leaving debts when his wife got carried away with the scheme. This is not about cheating, Sergei. It's about the system. And you are the only one who not only didn't break down, but took everything apart in detail. I thanked him. She stood up and adjusted her scarf. Do whatever you want with it. I just wanted you to know that you won because you remained human, no matter what. She left slowly, without looking back. A week later, the court ruled. Divorce, division of property in my favor. The satisfaction of the moral claim is partial, but with the wording in which the main phrase was, "The defendant's behavior is in the nature of systemic deception and manipulation." Olga Dmitrievna said, "You didn't just get a divorce, you proved that you were right." Not loudly, but forever. Elena did not come. She was represented by an appointed lawyer. After the meeting, he quietly approached and said, "She asked me to tell you that he regrets it and asks not to report it to the police." I didn't say anything because the words didn't mean anything anymore. I returned home in the evening. The old table, the tiles that had broken off by the sink, the curtains she had chosen. Everything was and wasn't. I put the kettle on, sat down at the kitchen table, and looked out the window at the street, where a lantern illuminated the wet asphalt. That message. It all started with him. But in fact, it all started much earlier, from the moment when someone stopped appreciating the truth and someone decided to stay with it until the end. I survived, I collected, I proved, not by shouting, not by hysteria, but by silence, precision, and action. It's cold to the end.